Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, I'm not going to lie. I love you guys too much to do that. Every once in a while, we drop the ball, but if you're within the sound of our voice, that must mean you're in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of industry professionals and we pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and in a conversational fashion. And, you know, if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to assume that you do, because you're listening right now. You can subscribe to the podcast. You can find us basically wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google. Give us the old like and subscribe with a 5-star rating. And don't forget that we also archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we would absolutely appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to follow us on social media. We're at In the Seats. Where else would we be? You can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and I say this a lot, but it's true, it is the most important, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, festivals, and so on and so forth. Basically the moving image at large, because if we love to watch it and write about it and talk about it, we love it when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So please pay us a visit. On this episode, I got to admit, this happens every once in a while. We get bogged down with work and tons of stuff going on, and stuff falls through the cracks. And we owe this one an apology. And because we're talking about the film Wood and Water, which had a run in New York and L.A., and from what I understand, a pretty good one. It's from filmmaker Jonas Bak, and it's a really interesting feature debut because it follows Anke, who dreams, who is just newly retired, and she dreams of spending time with her grown children, including her elusive son, who's a little uncommunicative, who's been living in Hong Kong for years, and is unable to join his mother and sister back in Germany due to ongoing pro-democracy protests. And in what really is kind of a daring decision, Anke sort of dealing with her loss and kind of decides to go to Hong Kong to find Max, but really also find herself at the same time. It's really a very quiet but a very, very beautiful film from writer-director Jonas Bak, who is telling a very personal story. Like, there's a lot of stuff in here that he pulled from his own life, and it's a gorgeous film. It's, like I said, it was playing in New York and it was playing in LA, and there might be a national release to follow. I'm not entirely sure, but if you hear about a film called Wood and Water coming to a theater near you, it is a really fascinating little piece of cinema, which we enjoyed greatly. But even more than that, we enjoyed our talk with Jonas, who made this real gentle sort of almost fable, and he shot it in 16 millimeter, and his lead actress was his mother. I mean, this is the kind of film that, you know, we love to champion and we love to talk about, because it really is the spirit of storytelling. And I mean, Jonas has done a great job on this. Like I said, if you hear about a film called Wood and Water coming to a theater near you, check it out. You won't regret it. It's definitely a interesting and really well done piece of cinema. But first, enjoy our talk with Jonas, because it's a pretty good one. Obviously, first off, just thank you so much for the time today, man. I really appreciate this.
Thank you for having me, David.
Now, I mean, I guess my first question is just, I mean, obviously I enjoyed the film, but walk me through sort of the origin of the story. I mean, not this is necessarily sort of something that hasn't been done before, but it's the approach that I think really struck me. Just sort of the very minimalist, the very sort of quiet way you told this story. Walk me through sort of the idea on your end as you were getting it started.
Yeah, I think it was a personal perspective of a young man living in Hong Kong, lost son. What I wanted to make into a film at first, and someone who misses home, or like asks himself the questions of home and where does he belong. And that developed into just the portrayal of my own mother, really. I think that's what it comes down to in the end, and that's what then inspired everything else about the film. I just thought it's a great way of mixing documentary and fiction. It's a great way of me and my mother doing something together, and it's a great way, to bridge that distance as well that was between us in life, and maybe that distance that older people long to bridge to their children and the life that they have in their future. So I wanted to learn from that perspective and be inspired.
Was that something you've been talking about with your mother, or did it take a little bit of convincing? Because I imagine the casting process when it's your mother is a bit of a different beast.
I think because in the beginning it was mainly about the Hong Kong bit and going to Hong Kong and kind of looking for me. So it is kind of, I think she was up for it. Also, and what she really liked about the script or the idea is that she gets to project herself into the future, into retirement. She wasn't retired yet when she decided to act in this film. So I think there was a lot there in the story and the approach that connected with her. And it didn't take much convincing, really. I think it took more work than to get her to act and to accept certain things, and to accept that it's not all just her reality. It's also some parts of fiction. That was a bit more difficult, but to go on this journey together, it was kind of thankfully very easy.
So how much of it did you have to script? Was it more of like a loose idea of where you wanted the story to go, or like, I'm just curious on sort of like the narrative arc of it all, how you sort of put that together?
I started writing the Hong Kong part, and it was much more dramatic. It was more of a nightmarish search of an older woman for her son, and that part on its own was inspired by a young Portuguese homeless man that I heard of. I think I saw him as well one night, but I heard of his story and that his parents were going to come to Hong Kong to look for him. When I heard about that, then it all came together for me and how I want to tell the story. So I wrote all that and I showed it to her and I showed it to other people, and they were really up for it, and I thought it was great. And then I built the whole Hong Kong Germany and kind of the present and the past and the memories. This part I built afterwards. But this narrative thread that an older woman goes to look for her son, goes on an adventure to check on her children in a later stage in life. That kind of that's the first thing, and that we always kept. And the rest kind of developed as we shot as well. So, for example, that her search for the son, which is kind of something that it's kind of a plot arc, but that kind of drifts off into finding herself and kind of, stepping into this new chapter in life with a different kind of mindset that she maybe had before. This all developed, and this was all inspired by what happened in Hong Kong as well. So, for example, also the protests, so this energy that was going through the streets that rubbed off on all of us and gave this actually made the film quite hopeful and positive, which it wasn't at the very start. So all these things kind of shaped it.
No, absolutely, because I mean, there is this tone of, I mean, I don't like of just solitary, like being solitary and being sort of with oneself in this sort of massive humanity, like the protests in Hong Kong. And I mean, it was amazing to see just sort of how sort of alone we can be while even surrounded by people. And I mean, I'm kind of curious, when you were shooting this, how important was it for you to sort of craft something that was very sort of visually sort of distinctive, especially for the characters? I mean, even as your mom is in Hong Kong and she's meeting people, like she's meeting people, but she's still alone. There is this sort of alone but not alone kind of vibe that goes on there that really is kind of fascinating as she is discovering sort of maybe just herself, but your life as well, even though you're not there, quote unquote.
Yeah, I think there's also, I mean, what adds to that is that I wanted to show Hong Kong from a different perspective. So there's the idea that she's lonely, but there's a city is a place of opportunity as well, I think, and there's a chance to make connections everywhere. So it's kind of a hopeful and a positive and almost romanticized kind of loneliness that I wanted to portray in this film. Not a desperate and hopeless loneliness, and not a depressed loneliness, but a curious loneliness, and also a bit of a naive loneliness. And it's that so to give also a different perspective on Hong Kong and do it more justice, because it's not just a hectic, overwhelming, oppressive mega city. It's also, a place of calm and spirituality and warm-hearted people.
No, I mean, I noticed that you shot this in 16, and I really felt that added to sort of the warmth of it all, just to sort of be able to give almost a different sort of texture. But I mean, I've got to imagine for you, was it difficult to be running around with a film setup, or like did having 16 sort of make it easier as opposed to maybe like a video crew or that kind of thing?
I think it made it, apart from the weight of the camera and the loading and the waiting for that and the stress because we couldn't see the image really.
Yeah.
Apart from that, I think it it helped us to kind of streamline what we shoot, to be economic and to think what we're doing. Also because my mother couldn't do 50 takes of things, so we had to really, just be careful with that. And I don't know. I had this chance to make this film on my terms, so that was very special for me to have this chance, and I wanted to make it. That's why I wanted to shoot on 16mm as well, but to make it something kind of almost like a live action, something quite special. I just wanted to make it special, and I come from quite a visual background because I worked a lot as cinematographer, so that was important to me, and also this idea of nostalgia in a way, because the film is about memories in Germany and her past life, but it's also capturing Hong Kong that's kind of changing in front of your eyes. So you kind of want to capture it, and this was a nostalgic approach to everything really. And I felt 16mm and how tangible and present it is was the right choice.
Well, no, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I mean, I love that you bring up nostalgia, because obviously this is very much a family affair as well. And it's not just your mother, but there's other members of your family in the film. Like, how was it for you sort of directing family? Did they let you, or did you have to have a talk sort of beforehand, or how was sort of the dynamic there of you being sort of the director and the boss on set?
Yeah, it was more difficult with the family. I think that it took more convincing to get them all together to rehearse this, and then to also to trust me to project it in a cinema, and it was difficult. Yeah, my mom was all easy. I think we were very close. I think she completely understood why I really need this film in my life, and why also, it's her healing, but it's also my healing. As I said in the beginning, I was kind of lost in Hong Kong to a degree. So making this film was also pushing me into a new path. So it was important for me, but for the others in the family, it was a bit more difficult. But everything that you see is really rehearsed and acted, actually. So it's scripted and acted. And I mean, I'm still very grateful for them that they did it, but I also think that maybe it wasn't always necessary to have. I mean, looking back at it, there are some weaknesses maybe in the German part that, and yeah, maybe.
Do you get to appreciate sort of the catharsis of the moment of telling the story and telling it your way, but while you're dealing with the stresses of making a film and dealing with family and all that, like, do you get to sort of understand it, like appreciate it in the moment, or did it have to come sort of after the fact, once you were maybe in post and putting it all together?
You mean the overall
sort of your feeling about sort of the nature of the story and sort of how important it was for you to tell your way? Yeah,
a lot came together in the post-production. Every step of the making of this film revealed something new, and it's the beauty of it is that even now that I talk about the film, it's all easy now to sit and reflect and say maybe smart things about why we did certain things, but I have to honestly admit that it happened step by step, and we learned with each step, and it's a lot about following your intuition and let the story kind of pull you in, like live it. And that was even in catharsis with my mother I had before, but kind of finding the universal in it, which is what goes beyond the mother looking for a son, which is kind of aging and longing, and all these things that they crystallized at the step by step, but they really came together in the edit.
No, and I mean it comes together so beautifully, and I mean I love the use of music in the film as well. Can you talk a little bit just in terms of, I mean, I guess because I'm always fascinated just about, as a film fan and as a film viewer, just how like the right things need to be layered together, and everything, because I mean, obviously, I mean, especially when you're shooting in Hong Kong, you're not necessarily going to know if you got the shot until much later, right? So like you have to sort of have to know the kind of shots that you're composing and what you want to put to it even before you even sort of step out in the world with a camera, I'd imagine.
The music particularly not that much. I didn't think about the music until the post-production stage.
Okay.
Not really, no. And the music then, it's actually also, I tried things out with the composer to underline certain scenes and to kind of, tie this underlying longing together, that the past, the present, and the future, as Hong Kong is the future for her, just to have a thread, a musical thread throughout. But it didn't quite work, and it was actually by chance, because I personally listened to Brian Eno, and I listened to it when the pandemic started, because I wasn't so well, and just to make myself feel better. It was my own kind of meditation, that music, and I just thought, okay, why don't I replace the music that we've been working on with Brian Eno and just see, because that's also the fun of post-production, is you just, I mean, I've watched it so many times, but every time, even just the smallest part can change everything. And that's, I really enjoyed that. And with Brian Eno, then underneath, everything changed in a way, or it came together. Like it's this music just kind of grasps a little bit the idea that you're part of everything. And this is what the mother realizes in Hong Kong, that she's also, this place has something to do with her. Everything is connected in a way.
For sure.
And so then, I put that music under. I liked it a lot. I showed it to my mother. It's also the first time that she liked the film then. And I thought, okay, for her, we tried to get the rights, and thankfully it worked out.
That's got to be a stressful moment, showing a test cut to your mother.
Yeah, her first reactions were kind of just blank and sort of getting there. I don't know. and obviously the first screening is she has to overcome looking at herself for an hour and a half. I think that wasn't easy at all.
Now, I'm kind of curious, now that you're at the tail end of all this process, is there anything maybe you learned, not just about filmmaking, but about yourself, that maybe you didn't expect to?
I always thought that filmmaking or arts is not a democratic process. But I learned in this that it is, and it can be, if you trust people. And my short films that I made before were different. I wanted to be in control of everything, and I wasn't kind of loose about it. But just because of how the film happened and how we were pulling left and right and all the uncertainty, I kind of let it all happen in a way, to a degree, and trusted everyone, and everyone played a big part in it. And especially my mother. So in a way, what I'm saying is not just me constructing everything, but I'm also receiving a lot from reality.
For sure. Yeah.
From people, and I like that, and I want to keep working in that way.
It takes a village, but it takes the right village. No, you're absolutely right. It's an important part of the process, to be sure. Now, I mean, this is a silly question, but it's one I always like to ask. Like, think back to your younger days. Like, what were the films, or maybe the moments in films in your life that had the light bulb go off in your head that made you want to sort of be a storyteller and be a filmmaker?
One particular film was 3 Days by Jonas Bak. I don't know if you.
Yeah, I know the film. Yeah.
It was at film school, and it was at the time at film school, second year, where I thought I knew everything already, and and we had this.
You realized you knew nothing. Okay.
No, I mean, I was, in a way, it's totally opened new perspective on film and life as well. Just slow cinema and tapping into that, and kind of a passion grew from that, and a totally new approach to filmmaking and storytelling, because it's different stories that you tell. If you choose a slow or meditative form, I think. But it's also so needed, and for me in my life and in all our lives, I think. And Bartas and Simon Young, these guys made the light bulb go off.
No, you're absolutely right, man. And I mean, I guess just at the end of the day, now that Wood and Water is sort of getting out there into audiences and into the universe, as it were, like, what do you hope people pull away from it?
Well, I hope that the film is just a how do you say in English, a projection space that, you know,
Yes.
it people can discover their own themselves and their own journeys and things for themselves in it, and I hope that I'm offering that, the film offers that, not the big one inside, but many, and you know, and a bit of hope. And now hope is, I don't like hope, it's too ideological, but a bit of I don't know, vision, or sorry, I'm
No, it's all
been a
right.
long
No,
day.
no, but I mean, it's such a beautiful. I like, at least for me, it's such a beautiful example of how giving yourself space can open up so many opportunities, not just personally, but sort of on so many different levels, and it gives you sort of a unique perspective to sort of have a moment in that space
Mm,
to really be able to look around and see what's around you, and then sort of move on from there. Because we live in such a rushed go world, this feels like a reminder that occasionally it's important to sit and sort of appreciate what the moment that you're in, and sort of
mm.
understand how that's going to shape your next step forward. And I think you've done a great piece of work with that.
Yeah, it's that. But what I wanted to say earlier, I think now I've got it, is like, I don't want him to take hope from it, because I think hope is something very passive. You just sit and hope for things to improve.
Right.
But I want the active side of hope, sort of stepping out and, you know, from behind the window into
For
life, and
sure, for
making
sure.
opportunistic, some opportunistic perspective on life. I hope that's what people take from it.
I hope so too, man. And I agree with you on that. But I mean, just, congratulations on a great piece of work, and thank you so much for the time today, man. This was fun.
Thanks a lot, David. It
All
was.
right.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.